Welcome to the show, Maxime Sigouin. Hi, how are you
Yes,
today?
good. Thank you very much for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. We kind of just met. For our listeners, just to reference, we got one friend who I'm sure, guys, the bodybuilding vegan Robert is connect us, and I'm so excited to know more about you and what you do. So before we get started, can you tell everyone who listens us where you're from and what do you do for living right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm originally from Canada, Quebec, Canada, but just recently traveled the world, lived many different places, but just moved to Los Angeles in the last few months.
Nice. Which part?
Yeah,
I used to live there.
I'm in Thousand Oaks.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, away from the hecticness of like actual LA, and it's a little bit cleaner too, which I enjoy. So I needed to move out the city. So moved down here, and then what I do is I run multiple vegan coaching businesses. Basically, what I do is just trying to impact as many lives as possible.
Wow, that's amazing, and sound really great. But if we're gonna go into, your history, and then in the first place, can we know why you decided to go plant-based and when it's happened in your life?
Yeah, of course. So there's kind of like two pivotal moments that made it so that I went vegan, and then that made it that I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to this. So ultimately, I think like over 9 years ago, I used to be a bodybuilder. I used to be 240 pounds. I used to compete on stage. I was very much non-vegan. I was eating like a dozen eggs for breakfast, 3 chicken breasts every 2 hours for 5 meals a day. I
Like
was a
typical
typical
bodybuilding diet.
I was a bro ultimately. And so I went basically I was that's how I was eating. I got recruited for high fashion modeling. There's an agent that saw me and is like, I see something under those big chubby cheeks because I was 240 pounds. And so she's like, start losing some weight and see, if we can get you some jobs. I was like, I've competed bodybuilding, I've done powerlifting. I'm like, let me just try something new. So I went on Google because I need to be a lot skinnier to fit in the clothes because at 240, I was like an extra large in clothing and I need to be like a small medium ultimately for shirts. So I went on Google. I'm like, what diets are going to allow me to get skinny? And vegan showed up. And vegan was like, vegans are skinny and weak. I was like, well, I don't care if I'm weak. I just need to be skinny. So I ultimately went vegan the next day. So I went from 12 eggs for breakfast and a bunch of chicken breasts per day to like a bowl of frozen blueberries, bananas, and dates. That was my transition to veganism 9 years ago. And ultimately now I've
Wow.
discovered you can be strong and be vegan, but I discovered that after. I didn't listen to Google for that part. But that's what made me vegan. And at the time, my grandfather got diagnosed with cancer. And then that's when I started watching like Forks Over Knife and all those documentaries. And I was like, wow, this makes so much sense that if you eat this way, you're reducing your risk of all these diseases. And then about 7 years ago, my ex-partner that I was engaged with got diagnosed with breast cancer. And so I was her caregiver for 5 years as she was going through her healing journey. And unfortunately, she ended up passing away over 2 years ago now. But going plant based drastically changed her healing process. So the doctors gave her 1 year to live, and she made it 5 years. And so after she passed away, I was like, I'm going to make it a personal mission of mine to help as many people as possible not be in her position when a lot of it could be prevented through plant-based eating and just living a healthy lifestyle. So that's kind of like what sealed the deal for me ultimately.
Wow, that's a story to share. Oh my God, it's so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing this. And it has so many insights that anyone can find, and then try and then get inspired. So, first of all, let's talk about you. When you decided and you switched to the plant-based diets from like really crazy amount of protein from meat and dairy, you switched to
Yeah.
the plant-based. So, can I know, did you feel any difference in your performance in the gym, in your recovery, in overall health? Whatever changes did you feel it, and how was that process going on?
Yeah, for sure. So my journey is a little bit skewed because the end goal of me transitioning to vegan was to get skinny. So I was like actively trying to lose muscle. So that was like most people don't want that. So I just want to say you can gain muscle as you go vegan, but my goal was the opposite because I needed to lose a lot of it to be able to fit in the clothing to work in the high fashion industry, which ultimately ended up working in like Milan and New York, and it worked out for me. But when I transitioned, first thing that went away is I didn't know this, but my nose was clogged up. Like I had mucus from consuming dairy for a lot of years. But when I went vegan after about 2 weeks, my nose started clearing up and a tension in my forehead went away. But I didn't even know it was there because that's how I'd lived my whole life because I'd been consuming dairy my whole life. So when I cut out the dairy, that went away. Digestion was rough at first. I do have to be honest because I didn't transition the right way. I went from a ton of meat to and maybe 15 grams of fiber per day to like 100 grams of fiber per day. So my gut health, my gut was very distorted because I like triple, quadruple the amount of fiber that I was intaking. But what kept me going was I needed to look a specific way. And as I continued to educate myself, I was like, damn, my skin's clearing up. I have way more energy. Like my recovery in the gym was actually better as much as I was actively trying to like lose muscle mass. That's the reason why I stayed ultimately. It's like I just felt really good. I had more energy. And the big part for me is I felt that I was really slow when I was in school. I couldn't focus. And then when I went vegan, that kind of tension went away. And I was like, oh my God, I'm actually really smart. I was just like dumbed down from all the animal products that I was consuming.
Wow. That's significant. And then it's usually happened to anyone who actually switched to the plant-based diet that I absolutely see. And how was that, like your fashion career? And then why did you actually switch to the bodybuilding again and to the, teaching others? Like, can we know a little bit more how that happened?
Yeah, for sure. So being a bodybuilder, powerlifter was non-vegan, transitioned to modeling, went vegan just to get skinnier, worked in that industry for a few years and just realized that it's very toxic. Like the whole drug party, I never got into it, but it was a part of the industry and I didn't enjoy that. It was not the healthy lifestyle that I wanted to live. So I ended up stepping back. And then because my ex was going through cancer at the time, I wanted to do a fundraiser to kind of help support her and other people that were going through the cancer journey. So I was like, what crazy event can I set up where I could raise money for cancer patients? I'm like, I'm going to bike from Vancouver, Canada to San Francisco, California, which is like 2,000 kilometers or miles ultimately. I've never really like cycled before besides when I was a kid. So I just took it on. It took me over 20 days to bike. I biked, I camped every night. I camped every night for 20 plus days.
And
And
you
when I
was
came back,
alone? Just
yeah,
you?
yeah, it was just me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I documented the whole thing on YouTube. So I put up a video every single day. So I was biking, vlogging, editing, posting, and then doing it every single day. And then when I came home, I was like, that was pretty fun. Like it was cool for me to see that I was able to do that. So I'm like, what other crazy thing can I do? So I just Googled some of the world's craziest events and an Ironman showed up. And so I was like, well, let's just me sign up for an Ironman. And then I fell in love with that sport and I did over 25 different like half Ironmans and triathlons. And then eventually got out of that because I got into business and I just couldn't train 20 hours a week anymore because business takes a lot of time. And so I just went back to regular training for fun ultimately. So now I'm back like strength training and doing some cardio and some biking and cycling.
Yeah. So when you say I got into the business, what do you mean by that? Like,
Also, my current businesses for coaching.
yes, so that's I got it, but can you explain how that happened? Like we have a lot of people who do an Ironman or any other athletes who do it, but they have side jobs, right? When they kind of make a bills paid.
Yeah.
How has that happened that you create your business and you feel the need to educate others and help with your knowledge?
Yeah, for sure. So how it got started was like midst of COVID. Um, I was working a corporate job. I basically came back from Christmas and they're like, hey, we're running out of money and you're the last person hired, so we have to let you go. I'm like, man, I'm taking care of my ex-partner at the time. I was like, I have like 10K of cancer treatments to pay per month. Like I can't lose my job. And so ultimately they just let me go. I went home and I was like, well, I need to make a living somehow. So I had my personal training certification. I'm like, let me go work at a gym, right? Because that's what I love doing ultimately. So I work at a gym, I train a few people, and then COVID happens. All gyms shut down everywhere. And then I'm like, dang, I can't even train people. Like I have to do everything online. So I'm like, how do I do this online? And ended up finding this mentor that basically got me started into all of it. And so basically I combine my passion for fitness, which I've had my whole life, and the ability that I've had to manipulate my body at will. Ultimately, if I want to get big, strong, lean, ripped, I can do all of it whenever I want to. And so I decided to teach that to other people, but do it the whole food plant-based way so that it could align with my mission of helping people disease-proof their body. So I do believe it's one of the best ways to eat. And that takes a lot of time, ultimately. That's why I stopped training for Ironman.
Yeah, well, is your mentor is Robert Greek or not?
No, it's another mentor on the online space. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I just know that a lot of folks who listen us, they are fitness individuals and they are dreaming to switch their, everyday jobs. So that's
Yeah.
why it's so interesting for me to know your perspective and your story, and maybe give someone, any type of example how it's possible and how you can make it work. So you actually hire a mentor, and how did you
Yeah.
find that? Like, how did you find a person who can teach you how to do the business? It's in the first place, how, and before you even find it, where the idea of, okay, I cannot figure out how to do it myself, I need the help. How did you actually figure out that you need a mentor?
Yeah, well, when I made $200 in a month, I was like, I need help. I need more money than $200 in a month. So I was like, this is not working on my own. This is not working. So
Yeah.
ultimately, through Instagram, I saw some ads from my mentor. His name is Vince Del Monte. I owe a lot to him. He's made a huge difference in my life. And yeah, basically just reached out to him, and he was like, hey man, it's this amount of money to work together. And I was like, I lost my job. I have like 10K of cancer payments per month. My credit cards are loaded. I have no money. And he's like, well, when there's a will, there's a way. If you gotta step up as a man to be able to provide for your partners, like you'll find a way to do it. So I called my credit card company, which had no reason to give me more money because I owed them a lot. And then they were like, hey, like I need this money because I need to buy this thing. And you're like, okay. I was like, oh shit. I called my mentor. I'm like, take the money now before they change their mind. And basically turned that, like, it was a few $100 investment because it was a monthly
Mhm.
payment plan, into over 5 figures in the first month. And
Wow.
basically just kind of grew and scaled from there. But getting a mentor was the fastest way for me to be successful, because it's kind of like hiring a fitness coach. You have the desire to want to be fit and healthy. You want the desire to be successful, but you don't know how. And there's someone else that did it. So, like, why do I have to reinvent the wheel and do years of testing and mistakes when someone did all the stupid mistakes and I can just pay them to save me that time and have a clear path to do it? So I've been a big fan of mentors since then, and have hired multiple since then.
Yeah, well, I truly believe in that too. And then every coach have a coach, every mentor have a mentor as well. So we always have something we can take from others and apply in our lives in any industry. So that's for sure. Absolutely agree with you. Now, I wanted to kind of go in a little bit deeper in this cancer story that you have with your ex. And if you don't want to talk about that, you can let me know, and it's fine. But I just interested in how the plant-based diet can affect the cancer and really help someone to live longer. So if that's
Yeah.
what was the case with you, can you just tell us a little bit more? How did you find out about that? And is it really helped?
Yeah. Well, again, it made a significant difference. You were supposed to live 1 year and made it 5 years, right? So one of the things, I was already vegan for maybe 4 years, 5 years at that point. So I already knew the benefits of it. I already had done a ton of research. I already had experimented a lot on my own with the different sports that I did. But the big thing that I learned going through the cancer space is cancer disease is a disease of the whole body, right? People think that it's like you have to do one thing to kind of heal the cancer, but it's a combination of everything. So when you think of what a cancer cell is, they're growing kind of in your body because there's an environment that is conducive to the cancer growing, right? So if it's acidic, if there's inflammation, if there's mucus, if there's lack of oxygen, like cancer loves that in order to grow. So there's an environment that was conducive for those cells to grow. And then those are cancer cells. What you call a tumor is your body being smart enough to be like, instead of having the damage happening everywhere in the body, let's just grab it and shove it into one area. That's a tumor. A tumor is a combination of cancer cells, which is a good thing because your body's trying to protect you from having the cancer spread everywhere. But ultimately, that cell was created out of an environment in your body. So if we know that acidity, inflammation, mucus, and lack of oxygen helps the growth of cancer cells, then what are some of the best ways to do the opposite of that? How do you make your body alkaline? Don't eat meat, right? Eat plant-based. It's going to make your body alkaline. How do you remove mucus? Dairy is one of the biggest causes of causing mucus in the body. Low oxygen, there's like breathing, exercise to kind of do things, moving the lymphatic system. But ultimately, eating plant-based was one of the number one things that you could do to help pivot a lot of those variables that would allow you to change the environment in your body to make it so that there isn't an environment for the cancer cells to continue growing. And also for people that are getting, for example, surgery, they get surgery, they get a mastectomy as an example, but then they go back to eating McDonald's and eating terrible food, but the environment is still there. So as much as you remove the breast, the environment is still there to create more cells. So going plant-based addresses the foundational issue of changing the environment for people to kind of help the disease-proof their body and a lot of times reverse their chronic illnesses.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's even a lot of researches out there that you can read about this. But the thing that is like pissed me off the most, that when you actually go to the doctors, it's really hard to find the one that is going to tell you that. They
Yeah, well,
know
most of them, they
yeah.
aren't educated on plant-based nutrition. And
Yeah.
I think I've probably had over 50 different doctors come into my coaching program to learn how to fuel themselves the whole food plant-based way, because they don't get that as a part of their curriculum unless they willingly try to get the additional education.
Yeah, so that's like really sad. I have the same thing. I have so many nurses that's coming to me, and then
Yeah, a lot of
blow my
nurses.
mind. Yeah, it's blown my mind. I'm like, what did you learn in the nursing school? Do I, nutritionist, have to build you a nutrition plan? Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
they
so,
treat the symptom. They treat the
yeah.
symptom. That's what they're trained for.
I truly believe that we can change this by bringing up this open conversation out there, and then finally our government or this like educational structure will add more information into the doctor's education about nutrition, because we are what we eat. And if your doctor, when you want to listen to this, if your doctor not asking you about your diet, about your sleep levels, about your recovery and workout routine, when you come with any type of injury or disease or you don't feel good, you don't have
Yeah,
a doctor, you have a drug dealer, right?
yeah, a very well-paid drug dealer.
Yes, that's not good. Run away.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think the same way on that.
Yeah, well, I now want to know a little more about your coaching. So, how did you actually, create this program? And if anyone interested, can you just go in deep a little more what your program look like and who may be interested and benefit from it?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So I structured everything to be whole food plant-based because the number one priority is like, yes, we provide transformations for people, but that's the second priority. The first priority is to get your health right, right? Like, what's the point of having a great body if you feel like shit, you have no energy, and you have chronic illnesses or inflammation in your body and your joints hurt? Right? We've all been there. I don't know for you, but when I was doing bodybuilding while eating meat, like I looked ripped and jacked, but I felt terrible. My digestion was terrible. My energy was off. I didn't feel good. So we do everything whole food plant based. We don't really use any form of like fake vegan products in there. I'm not against it from time to time. You want to go on a date night, that's fine. But for the most part, we want to eat whole foods. So we do it that way. And the way that I built it is to be the last program that people ever need to do, because I've done fat loss program, I've done bodybuilding preps, I've done different types of things. And then once you're done, the coach is like, all right, good luck. Right. And you're like, oh shit, like how do I go back to eating normally? Because you're calorie deficit, right? After doing your fat loss. So we just include the full transformation from the fat loss to the reverse dieting to support pros program to make sure that they continue to feel support and continue to have success. So we try to focus not on the before and after, but like on the after photo. Like how do you look like in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year down the line? And that's kind of what we put our bigger emphasis on, is like habit building and doing it in a way that's sustainable so that people can continue to do it after. Because if not, they're just stuck putting the weight back on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the stats for North America are like 95% of people put the weight back on 6 months to a year after. On our side, 80% of people stay the same weight as when they left. So like, for example, 30, 40, 50 pounds lighter, 2 to 3 years after.
Mm-hmm.
So we almost reverse the stats on people keeping the weight off. So it's all structured around that part, because, what's the point of losing the weight if you're just going to put it back on after, right? Unless you're bulking, which is different.
Yeah, of course. That's great. Yeah, I absolutely love this approach, and I do the same with my clients. We don't look for short-term goals, right? We wanted to make sure that they know what to do when you're gonna not longer train them and educate them.
Yeah.
Because that's the main goal. Like you don't want it to do something and then come back to even worse health situation, and then, you know, it's like a circle, and then you stuck in the circle like you did before, right? And I
Yeah.
think it's amazing. The other hand, I want to know a little more, because this is interesting from the nutrition perspective. If your clients, not eat any fake meats that you can buy in a store, what
Yeah.
do you use for main sources of plant-based protein? Because in any
Yeah.
ways, in order to lose fat, you have to make sure you have enough protein.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do tell people there's a big emphasis on protein. So ultimately what we do is like organic non-GMO, like tofu, tempeh, some edamame, some natto sometimes, but like also all the beans, different types of beans and legumes, the grains. So you know as much as me, if you want to have like there's a calorie cost per gram of protein, right? So if you look at the non-vegan space, there's like whatever amount of calories for an egg, for egg white, and you get a certain amount of protein. But in the vegan space, most sources of protein come with something else, either a carb or a fat, right? Like tempeh, I think is going to be higher in carbohydrates and protein. Tofu is going to be higher in fat and protein. So to get 40 grams of tofu, it'll maybe cost you like 350 calories, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to have less of the other things because your protein source is taking up more calories. So that's typically kind of how we play around with the metrics to make sure that they get enough protein while staying within their range for their deficit. But because it's whole food plant based, like they get to eat so much volume of food because it's so low in calorie. Anything that's not a protein or like a fat is pretty low in calorie. You get a pretty decent amount of volume out of it. So that's kind of how we play around it. And people that have specific issues where they can't consume any soy, we just like to supplement with a little bit of protein powder in there. So there's two school of thoughts on that. I like to use there's a protein powder called Veg. I'm sure you're using, you know, a different one that tastes really good as well. There's a protein powder for people that like something a bit more natural. Hemp protein is like the closest you can come to a whole food, because I used to be in the hemp space. I used to work in that industry for a long time. So hemp protein is basically hemp seeds that's been cold pressed. So a lot of other protein powders you're going to see will use like hexane or heat to extract the protein and kind of eliminate the other components of like fat and carbs and fiber, for example, out of it. So they'll kill the protein. And then the fact that it uses hexane is just a chemical compound in there. But hemp, it's cold pressed. So the oil that comes out is hemp oil, and the meal that's left after, that's what protein powder is. So it's the closest form to like a whole food plant-based protein powder that you can use. So that's kind of like how we frame the protein conversation.
That's awesome. And I like this information about hemp protein, because I also want to add to that, guys, that the best, in my perspective, from also amino acid profile is the blend of hemp, soy, and rice protein. That's the best,
Yeah.
because they're going to give you the best amino profile, which is complete in order to get to you, you know, to the best protein intake as possible. So when you buy your protein powder, whatever brand you use, because you, as you mentioned, you use that one, I use the other one, or whatever. You just wanted to make sure in ingredients you have some mix. I think that's the best, for also just to have all the amino acids that you need in order your protein to be complete, because that's been
Yeah.
also a big kind of concern in the plant-based world, which is not true. The plant-based protein complete, it's just it comes from a different sources, so we have to blend meal in the meals or in a day at different sources of protein in order to get all the essential amino acids that we need. So
Yeah.
absolutely agree on that. Is more, I am vegan. I don't eat meat from 9 years old. So for
Yeah.
me, it's like all my life almost I don't eat meat, right? So for me, just to switch to the plant-based diet was much easier. But in the same
Yeah.
time, as longer I stick with that, as less I eat those fake meats from
Yeah.
frozen section in the store, and as more I, you know, educate myself and become a nutritionist, I actually right now get into trouble to explaining people that who comes to me with the digestion problem, with obesity, is already on a plant-based diet nowadays, and they
There's
like,
more
what?
and more.
Yeah, like what's going on? And I'm like, well, um is it in my side, right? Oh shoot, they
Oh,
you hear it?
no,
You don't hear
no,
anything? Okay,
no.
I hear it. I hear it. It's gonna be in the sound. Someone started to do something you know, in my building. That's so Why is that happen when I do a podcast, right?
Well, if I can't hear it, it shouldn't be in the recording.
No, it will, because I record. If I hear it,
Oh, it's
it's
an
gonna be,
external.
yeah, but
Okay.
it's okay. I'll gonna deal with that. So what I was saying, so what I was saying is
Fake meat, the
now with,
more the
yeah, yeah.
longer vegan. Yeah.
So nowadays, the problem is we have so much fake meats in the stores that are actually unhealthy, as well as almost like a real meats, right? So
Yeah.
being vegan nowadays is not meaning you're healthy, which could be opposite if you are not doing your research and if you are not following a whole plant-based diet.
Absolutely. And ultimately, like you said, you've been not eating animal products since you were 9 years old. And I went vegan 9 years ago. There was no options. Like your desserts, your processed food was like tofu flavored, like banana tofu flavored. Or like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
discovered Oreos were vegan, I think 2 years in, but like that's it. That was like the only treats you could have. Now you walk into Whole Foods and there's a full aisle of like vegan junk food, which
yeah.
it makes it harder for people because when we first transition, you have to eat clean because you don't have other options if you're not eating animal products. But now it's very easy to eat the Western way, but vegan ultimately.
Yeah, and it's kind of good because when people maybe gonna transition easier and try it out, because it's like, oh, well, I just can replace, right? But it's not only the one way, it's like a transition step that you guys could take, but then you have to add more and more real food into your diet, right? And I love those, some fun foods, and it's amazing to have them, but it cannot be your staples. I absolutely do the same with my clients, and I eat tofu tempeh every day. Do I eat
Yeah.
steaks, meats, and deli slices every day? No, not
From
really.
time to time, they show
Yeah,
up, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Like you said, as long as it's not a majority. And yeah, you're right. It's like it's a transitional tool, but it's also like if we get people that eat meat to switch to that, it's great because less animals are dying for it. But then on the flip side, I'm sure you've met a lot of those vegans that are like, I care about the animal, so I'm going to eat vegan, but I'm going to eat vegan processed food just because I care about the animals, but they don't care as much for their health, right? They care more about the animal than their health. And so they'll go eat vegan junk food for the animals, but then they're just destroying their health ultimately. So it needs to be
yeah.
a balance of both.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, with this being said, what do you think the difficulties you are encounter when you started the vegan diet? And then, is your clients have the same kind of problems?
Yeah, well, honestly, I think it's the same for everyone. It's like, what do I eat? Right? When you transition, it's like, what are the recipes? What are alternatives of foods that you can consume? Like if you're making like a vegan pancake, for example, like how you can use applesauce or banana or flax egg instead of an egg. So it was definitely like how to consume meals and how to structure the meals. That was the most difficult for me at first. And I spent so long researching. And I found that it's the same for the people that we help to transition. It's like, well, you can replace the steak for like tofu, for example, but people don't. It's funny. They'd rather eat potatoes, broccoli, and steak every day, and they're okay with it. But if I say replace it with tofu, they're like, nah, there's not enough diversity. I'm like, you didn't care for diversity before this. So it's just about teaching them different ways to prep food ultimately.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. So, if anyone want to join your programs or just follow your journey and know a little more about that, how they can find you and your coaching programs?
Yeah, for sure. If you go to fitvegan.ca, that would be an easy way, or just on my Instagram. I love answering questions. Because again, we didn't talk about this earlier on, but my personal mission is to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and disease-proof their bodies by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. And so anything I can do to get closer to that 10,000, to that 1 million people of lives impacted, then I will do what's necessary ultimately. So I love answering questions. So just Maxime S_official on Instagram. It's a direct line to me ultimately for questions.
Okay, and all this guys gonna be in description down below, so you can easy find those information as well. I can talk to you forever, I can feel it, but we
Yeah.
have to wrap the things up. So before I let you go, is anyone you want to share or tell everyone who listens?
Yeah. I think that it's a necessary shift that we are going to have to make for the future. And ultimately, if you have some type of any concern for your health and what you're doing is currently not working, consider giving it a shot, right? most people are scared that when they go vegan, like they're going to have to stay vegan and commit to it fully. Like just give it a fair shot for like a month at first and see how you feel. But the biggest part is get guidance when you're going to do it for that month, because so many people are trying to do it by themselves. They don't know what to eat. So they eat really boring food, or they're severely underate on their calories. And they're like, I'm feeling tired. I'm not feeling good. Like there's a proper way to do it. So again, I'm sure you have some amazing recipes, resources for people to transition. So like grab those and use those so that you can have a fair experience to assess like, hey, does this make me feel better or not? And then if it doesn't, then hey, you can always go back, but at least you gave it a fair shot, right? That's all I ask of people is, even if you can eat 70% plant-based, 80%, 90%, that's way better than 0% ultimately.
Yeah, I cannot more agree with that. This is absolutely true. And also, guys, don't be scared to don't be 100% vegan. I would just add that, because a lot of the times we are come into the, ideal form of being plant-based. Oh, I cannot be 100% plant-based, so I'm not even going to try. No, why?
Yeah.
Why? Even if you add one plant-based meal in your day, you're already doing better than you used to do before. You don't have to do everything 100%. You don't have to commit to call yourself vegan in order to try a whole plant-based diet and in order to just add more vegetables and grains into your diet, right? So that's also some really nice things, guys. You should just try it out. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed your conversation, but I just want to make sure we are in the time frame. So I have a small game that I play with everyone in the end of my podcast. So I just want to make sure we have time for that. Cool. It is like a rapid fire. I will ask you questions to get to know a little bit, like our audience to get to know a little better. And then you could just say yes. I mean, you should choose one. So it's like two things, and then you should choose one. Ready?
Okay. Yes.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Black or purple?
Black.
Gym or outdoor?
Gym.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Juice or smoothie?
Smoothie.
Wine or water?
Water.
Chocolate or sweet cream?
Sweet cream.
Kiss or hug?
Hug.
Love or sex?
Sex for her.
Okay. Oh my God. Thank you so much for your confession. Thank you so much again for showing up today. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to talk about? Please let me know.
No, you did a great job, honestly. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh my God. Thank you. It was really nice to meet you. If you anytime gonna stop by Hawaii, I'm here to, to be happy to meet you in person, and I wish you all the best. And I'm sure we're going to be connected through our bodybuilding, fitness, vegan world online.
Absolutely. Well, I'll have you on my show, and I'm actually going to potentially Hawaii at the end of this year. So we'll definitely let you know.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Yes, sure. And you guys go ahead and find Maxime on IG. He posts amazing content. I enjoy to see it. So keep it going. Absolutely great information. And I'm sure, guys, we will talk more. So thank you so much for listening today. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or wherever you're in the world. Bye-bye.
Thank you.